USA WTF? After a national or global disaster, emergency, typically huge policy initiatives are landed that help the lives of a nation's people. For example, after WW2, many nations began having affordable, taxpayer-funded healthcare. After COVID, the UK changed its student loan regulations to help students, college-educated people with their loans. Canada stopped interest on their student loans with the help of the government. Interest started accumulating for student loans in the U.S. today. No debt relief for most. We did get the SAVE plan that helps with payments but only covers the interest when subsidized. We don't change to help the people anymore. We didn't even add mandatory paid sick leave or paid family leave following COVID. Just insanity. We don't change to help the people anymore. The U.S. has never changed to help the people unless there have been credible threats of massive violence that would lead to the overthrow of the ruling order. To quote Winston Churchill, you can always count on the Americans to do the right thing, after they have tried everything else. After WW2, and Truman was elected for a second term, he tried to get universal health care passed. His fellow Democrats from the South would not support it because it would benefit everyone, which meant it would also help black citizens. Truman later said it was the biggest disappointment of his career that it wasn't passed. Every messed up thing about the U.S. has its roots in racism. We live in an oligarchy where the top 1% has bought all the old, greedy boomer politicians that run this country. There is no way on God's green earth they would do anything to help mostly millennial and Gen's borrowers because it would not generate profit. Younger people face an avalanche of debt, low-paying jobs, and general hopelessness, which is leading to perverse outcomes in lifespan, health outcomes. U.S. life expectancy is going down. But why would the elites care? They are making money hand over fist. So many banks are gonna cash in on this payment restart. Oh, and do not think for a minute that our system is stable. The ruling class is choking so hard on their own greed that they do not see the discontent in the working class, shrinking middle class. Anyone who read about the cauldron and stew of different circumstances that lead to the French Revolution. The U.S. is on a similar trajectory in distribution of wealth as pre-revolution France. It does not take a rocket scientist to see what could potentially happen. The U.S. age pyramid also heavily favors social unrest. The larger and more poor a younger population is in a society, the more likely it is to revolt. I have no clue what will happen. I just used to be a history teacher who has read a lot of books. Since the pandemic, it seems like there is a full, undisguised effort to make life wildly unaffordable for anyone but the uber wealthy, which will result in death for many. There is no compassion or path for anyone who can't afford to pull up the bootstraps, and that includes legislation that could help people. We aren't a government anymore, just 3 industrial complexes in a trench coat. We are a county of privatization. If a wealthy thinks this in his best interest to help people, we allow it. If the government wants to do what it should do, keep its citizens alive and well, it's called communism. Until the rich want to do the right thing, nothing will happen here in America. We have been chucked to the privatization of our lives. Wage slavery. That's all this nation is. One big plantation for a few soulless ghouls and their pets. At first, I was convinced that COVID would finally be the impetus that led to healthcare reform in the U.S. I had visions of single-payer systems dancing like sugar plums in my head. Boy, was I wrong. The forces in charge have such a stranglehold on every aspect of our lives, and they actually convinced half of Americans that change would be a bad thing. Sigh. It's called late-stage capitalism. It happened to the Bronze Age, the Norse of Greenland, the ancient Mayans, the people on Easter Island, etc. Most people are short-sighted and make decisions based on their personal self-interest, so when the people with all the money are also the ones in power, ergo making the decisions, those decisions tend to sink their country into the ground while only trying to cover the consequences for themselves personally. For many years, America has been bailing out megacorporations, banks, and billionaires when there's a crisis, even if they are the cause of the crisis. It's not unlike the Bronze Age corruption leading to Egypt being incapable of defending their own people. So they just started building their homes away from town, away from the border, and often somewhere hidden. We pay, they gain. It's what they spent all that money buying our country for. Typically, huge policy initiatives are landed that help the lives of a nation's people. Yes, we do that too. Except, as you may have heard, corporations are people, and money is freedom of speech. The rest of us are chattel. They tell you to bend over and grab your bootstraps but don't have the courtesy to provide a finger full of lube for what is coming while you are down there. It everyone for themselves here. It starts with how our government and our special interests play. Canada might have stopped interest on student loans, but my provincial government has raised their interest rate to nearly 8% to make up for it, and it is killing me. Nearly 70% of my monthly payment is eaten by interest now. Republicans blocked loan forgiveness at every turn. We can just not pay. All governments around the world are corrupt. The U.S. is under collapse and it's being intentionally spurred on. Didn't charge interest over the pandemic, but somehow able to capitalize $3,000 in accrued interest from that time. Hooray capitalism. Watched the Republican debate and they were all wigging out on how people got paid to not work, and blatantly ignored the fact that if people were well paid before the pandemic, we wouldn't have to pay people to not work because they'd have a savings. Also, politicians are absolutely bluffing. They want the profit system to run by whatever means necessary, even if it's through government safety nets. Corporations profit off of all money no matter where it comes from. Stop voting Republican. Conservative power has kneecapped America since well before they identified as Democrats. The switch during Jim Crow, and before they rose up against the Constitution in Civil War. Only then will Americans have legislators that are open to empathetic and financially, economically supportive lawmaking. The money and power has always been in the hands of, not us. So change is highly unlikely without huge population support in a physical way. To be fair, it's insane that we have student loans at all in the UK.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.